Hi everyone, welcome to Event Exchange, a series by Gevme where we dive into deep conversations with the experts shaping the future of events. I'm your host Keerat, and today I'll be talking to Joshua Butler, co-founder and COO at Falcon Events. Welcome Joshua, thanks for joining us today on Event Exchange.
Hello, Keerat. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that.
Today we will be addressing some of the frequently asked questions about the format of hybrid events. So let's get started. So before we dive into the topic itself, Joshua, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Falcon Events?
Sure. Falcon Events is a fairly young company. We started in December of 2019 to be a company dedicated to producing virtual and hybrid events. And so some might say that we looked ahead and saw the pandemic coming, but that is not in fact true. We just had really good timing. And so the last few years have been an amazing roller coaster producing virtual and hybrid events. My partner, Bill Mott, and I have been in the event industry for over 15 years. And that entire time, we've been producing virtual and hybrid events. So this was not a new thing for us. But we were in the right place at the right time with the right solution. And I think the numbers showed that we helped produce over 10% of all virtual events in the United States
Wow.
during the pandemic. So we have been very, very busy, and now we're producing hybrid almost every day of the year, and have many more months on the horizon.
Wonderful. And who are your clients? Like, what are the kind of industries or target segments that you guys have?
It's mostly conventions, conferences that do a lot of educational content, right? A lot of medical, a lot of legal, scientific, anything that requires continuing education. But also we work a lot with other event companies, other event agencies, AV companies, platforms such as yourself, kind of working behind the scenes with our partners to help them produce their virtual and hybrid components. And so because of that, our clients are very, very diverse.
Wonderful. Got it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about hybrid events. There's been a lot of different definitions of hybrid events that have been thrown around. So, how would you define what a hybrid event is?
Yeah, I mean, even what I call a hybrid event has changed fairly dramatically over the last few years, right? At its most actual, hybrid means a combination of two distinct elements, right, into something that is new. And in this situation, we're talking about in-person elements and some sort of virtual element combined into creating something new. Now, that can be a pretty wide spectrum, right? Your definition of hybrid probably falls somewhere in between there. But to really help think or change the way you think about hybrid, let's think about actually the evolution of events over the last few years. Because pre-pandemic, when someone said event, they did not think at all about virtual elements. It was all in person. I'm going to an event, it's going to be in person. That was everyone's frame of reference. And then you have the pandemic. Now everyone's frame of reference for an event is a virtual event. If you attended an event in 2020 or early 21, it was likely a virtual event. So we're changing the language around events. We're changing people's perception around events. And so through the pandemic, people started thinking about events as virtual or digital. Now that we're kind of on the other side of that, now we're dealing with a combination of those two things. And so for people, for attendees, that's been kind of a hybrid combination. But now that we're almost on the other side of that, these are just events, right? The future of events is not hybrid. Maybe it's a digital event, but just people expect now when they think of an event, they think, okay, am I going to attend in person or am I going to watch online? People just expect that now. And so now that it's expected, I think we can almost drop the hybrid and just call them events or digital events. Because people
Yeah,
now expect this convenience. They expect the enrichment that comes with the digital components, right? They want to engage from anywhere at any time.
absolutely. And that's an interesting perspective because the naming of, like you said, what we call an event, be it physical or live event or in-person event versus virtual, has been transitioning so quickly that it's literally changing every few months as to what's trending, if I could put it like that.
And
But
really
yeah,
this is a change of mindset. It's not
yeah,
just events. We can apply this to everything in our lives since before pandemic, because
yeah,
there's the old way, the way we did it in 2019. There's the way we did it, and I'm saying it, and maybe you're thinking events, but literally take anything in your life. There's the way
yeah,
you did it before the pandemic. There's the way you did it during the pandemic. And that means now, what are you doing? Are you doing it the exact same way you did it before? Are you doing it the exact same way you did it during? No. You're doing a hybrid
absolutely.
version of those two things, right? Your own
Yeah,
life is a representation of hybrid. So this
yeah,
is that kind of mindset that planners need going into planning and producing events now, not just
yeah,
in-person events, not just virtual events, but events, because our
yeah.
lives are hybrid lives and we have to start applying that to our events.
Yeah, absolutely, and very well put. So, I think what we do want to try and talk about today is really how do those, when you talk about two components at your event, so physical as well as virtual, and let's call it hybrid events, right? So, these such events are considered to be more expensive to produce. So, would you say that such hybrid events are really more expensive to produce?
Yes and no. They are more expensive if you think about it the old way. If you approach a hybrid event and you say, okay, I'm going to do my old event, the event that I did pre-pandemic, my 2019 event, I'm going to do that event. And let's just say for the sake of this discussion, that budget was $1 million US. So you have $1 million that you spent on your 2019 event. And you're thinking, all right, I have to do it the old way, but I'm also going to do it the new way, right? I'm going to combine what I did in 2019, my $1 million budget, and then I'm also going to do a new thing that's going to cost, let's say, 150,000. I'm going to combine those two things, and well, now what happens to my budget? It's a $1.15 million budget. But let's go back to the very beginning and let's think about it all in the new way, in the hybrid life way. So now you don't approach it saying, I'm going to do my 2019 event. You approach it from scratch. You approach it from the beginning. You create an all new experience given everything you know about everything that has changed in the last 2.5 years. And you create a new event, a hybrid event that is the best of both environments. And you do it at the same budget that you did your 2019 event in, right? Hybrid is not additive. Hybrid is not 1 + 1 = 2. Hybrid is combining one and something else into something that is still one, but that looks something different, right? That's
Yeah,
hybrid. So you can't approach it the old way, or else you're going to be in trouble, or you need to come up with a
yeah,
lot more money, and sell a lot more sponsorships, which is going to be hard, very likely, for you to do.
that's true.
So you
And
have
I
to
think that's
rethink it.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of the event planners did struggle in the first leg of the pandemic, if I could call it that, and even beginning 2021 when, economies were opening up. But they were literally trying to run two different shows, but at the same, like what you're saying, we need to think about unifying those two experiences and rethinking the whole event strategy more like that. Which actually brings me to the next question, which is more around how hybrid events have these different components that you need to manage. So there's the physical component and the virtual component, but also more importantly, unifying the two seamlessly. So are hybrid events really more complex to manage?
Going back to the same example, if you try and do the way you did it in 2019 and you
Yeah,
add an entirely new experience, virtual experience, then yes, it's going to be more complex. It's going to be harder for you because you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, right? You're trying to do something that's old school in a new school world. The world has changed and you cannot do it the old way. You have to start from scratch and rethink everything. Like I said, probably many areas of your life, if not all areas of your life, have changed dramatically over the last 2.5 years. Events have to as well. I've seen an amazing disconnect with meeting planners in that I would poll meeting planners at conferences and ask them how many of you enjoy the new work from home arrangement. And 80%, if not more, of the meeting planners raise their hand. Oh, yes, I love working from home. And yet they're surprised to hear that an equal number of, or an equal percentage of attendees want to attend events from home, right? So
yeah,
if people change how they're thinking about events, approach it from the new mindset, think about what can we do within our budget, within our means, within our staff, because the virtual components, they do need dedicated resources. They
yeah,
do need line items in your budget specifically for them. They need staff positions dedicated specifically to the virtual and hybrid components. If not, you're going to struggle.
yeah,
And all of that is
absolutely.
going to cost money. But perhaps you don't need to spend $500,000 or whatever the price may be on your general session stage.
Mm.
Perhaps you don't need to do the filet mignon or the salmon. Perhaps there are some other cuts that you can make to the in-person experience so that you can create a more
Yeah,
balanced event exposure to your audiences.
absolutely. That makes so much sense. I'm talking about a little bit of budgets and just sale of tickets and things like that. With hybrid events, there is the risk that sale of tickets for the virtual component cannibalizes the sale of tickets for the physical component, which are usually, more lucrative. How would you go about with pricing a hybrid event effectively?
Yeah, there was a lot of studies done about cannibalization before the pandemic, 2016, 17, 18, 19. And nearly every single one of those studies was conclusive that virtual or live streaming does not cannibalize in-person attendance. In fact, just the opposite. We found that a good 20 to 30% of your online audience would eventually attend an in-person experience. So pre-pandemic, it was really a marketing kind of push. Get people, tell people, show people what you're doing, get the messaging out, and 20 to 30% of those that saw it would want to participate in an in-person event. Now, we kind of have to, so that came from the mindset of every single person that watches a virtual live stream wanted to attend the in-person event. And this is still the mindset of so many meeting planners and meeting marketers, right? Everyone wants to come to the event, But that is so not true. Now we know that a very large percentage of your audience, of your attendees, will never attend one of your in-person events. Because we all saw through the pandemic that our audiences grew, sometimes double, sometimes triple, in that first wave of virtual only events. Now, why is that?
Yeah.
Why did we get all of these new audience members for the first time ever? And it's because for the first time ever, there were people that aren't going to attend in person, felt like they were a part of your community. You actually, for the first time ever, spent real money and real effort creating an experience that was engaging for a virtual audience. And that brought in so many more people. And now that we've kind of pivoted back to in-person, so many meeting planners have forgotten this idea. They've focused their efforts only on how do we get all of these virtual attendees to come to my in-person, instead of focusing on how do we create a quality and engaging experience for my virtual only attendees.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's kind of a missed opportunity for them if you look at it. Because like you said, attendance was, there was nothing stopping you from joining an event in a completely different time zone, completely different part of the world, happening live, and engage with the speaker, be in a live Q&A for example's sake. And I think those were the kind of opportunities that were coming up during the beginning of the pandemic. But a lot of people are actually focusing back on just bringing people back together in person. But sometimes it's actually not what your audience is looking for. So one of our other speakers was also talking about, just listen to your speaker and listen to your audience and see what they have to say. If in-person events work for you, that's great. But if not, then we need to rethink how we're positioning our events. Or what is the main goal of our event actually?
Yeah, I know we like to segment our audiences, but we really need to not think about our virtual audience and our in-person audience. They're just an attendee. And where your attendee chooses to engage with your brand is going to be unique to almost every single attendee. So you have to rethink your events, and not as an in-person event, not as a virtual event, not as a live stream, or not as a hybrid event, or not as a Facebook event, just as an event, an omni-channel event, right? You want to reach your attendees where they are. And we all expect this level of convenience. When we're interacting with one of our favorite retail brands, we might go to their app on our phone, we might walk into their store, we might watch a video on YouTube, we might call them, we might text them, we might message them, right? We are engaging with that brand in all these different ways. And that brand's not thinking about us as, oh, that's a Facebook customer, that's a text customer, that's an in-store only customer. No, they're thinking about you as a customer, and they're trying to make it as convenient as possible for you, the customer, to engage with their brand. This is how you have to approach hybrid events. Make it as convenient as possible for all of your attendees. Let them choose how they engage with your brand, and you will be successful in this new hybrid world. I gave this example at a couple recent talks of, I run a small film festival, and I have, of course, I did hybrid. Of course, it was all live streamed in the theater and live. And I have attendees, of course, that come every year. They come every day. I know them by name and face. And I hadn't seen this one woman for the first 4 days of the festival. And then I saw her in the theater on Saturday. And I said, hey, I haven't seen you. Where you been? And she said, I have been watching online for the last 3 days because I'd been working and I didn't want to get dressed and come into the theater, and it just was more convenient for me. But now that it's the weekend, I'm happy to be here in the theater. So here's an individual that it was convenient for her to watch online on some days and convenient for her to come into the in-person experience on other days, right? That
Yeah.
is a true hybrid experience. And that's what we want to achieve with our modern events.
Absolutely. That's wonderfully put. And so one of the main challenges with hybrid events is kind of unifying that experience, right? Because right now you're talking about this event where she watched the live stream and then she did attend in person after. So how do we ensure that, this whole experience for that particular attendee is seamless? What is required and what are kind of the best practices that we can adopt in order to achieve this?
First of all, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be seamless. Seamless kind of implies this like just perfect transition from one to the other. Like I'm not even aware that I'm now in a virtual world as opposed to my physical world. So don't try it for perfection. And also, they don't have to be fully unified. What you need to focus on is creating a quality, engaged experience for all of your audiences. If they're in person, what do you want? You want quality speakers, you want engaged discussions, you want opportunities to discuss things in the halls. That's what makes a quality experience on site. Well, what makes a quality experience for virtual? Similar things, good quality talks, a way to engage with the speaker, a way to talk with our fellow attendees. And if I feel like a user, like I'm engaged with the other people that are attending with me, then I'm going to walk away feeling good about my experience. That's going to be a quality experience. Do I care that when I'm asking a question, it's heard in the room? Do I care that the person in the room is submitting their question online? Not really, right? What I care as an individual is that I'm having an engaging experience at any given time, right? If I go to the app on my phone and I'm like, oh, I have a moment right now. I'm in the car. Well, hopefully you're not watching in the car, but whatever. You're at home. I've got a moment. You go into the app and you watch a video. You want that person to have an engaging experience. You want them to be able to ask a question. Maybe they're chatting with other people in the room. Maybe they see maybe they hear about a sponsor and they click a link within the app to take them to some sponsorship materials. That person has an engaging experience. If a person is walking into the convention center for the first time, you give them what they want to have an engaging experience. Yes, both groups need to feel like they're a part of the whole. And this is the hard part, right? You need moments of interwovenness so that everyone feels like they're a part of the bigger experience, because you want to have what I call togetherness. You don't have to be sitting next to a person to feel like you're experiencing the same thing together. So you just find these ways to interweave the two audiences, whether it's like certain keynotes or certain like discussion sessions, certain networking sessions. Also, it can just be at the same time. What I think a big mistake from some meeting planners is to schedule your in-person event, because again, they're doing it the old way. They're going to do their in-person 2019 event, and then, all right, we're going to record everything, or then we're going to do our virtual event a month later. Well, what this does for your virtual audience, because let's think about their experience, the virtual only audience, the audience that will never go to your in-person event. They're online, they're on social, they're seeing emails, and everything's coming through. Oh, we're having a great time in person. These sessions are amazing. Oh God, I'm seeing all my friends. What is that doing to the audience that can't be there or that will never be there? Right? They're feeling like left out. They're feeling like on the outside. And are you, the meeting planner, going to spend that same $1 million on your virtual? Are you going to approach it with the same exuberance as you did your in-person? Are you going to make that virtual audience member feel as important? Or better yet, are the people that attended your in-person going to see emails and social posts during the virtual event and think, oh man, I'm on the outside. I'm missing this great virtual experience, right? So the only way to have this like together as a total community experience is to do these things at the same time. Do them at the same
Mm.
time, interweave moments, and then create unique quality experiences for both attendees, and you will be successful.
I love that. That was a very interesting take on, what you should and shouldn't do when you're crafting a hybrid event. Wonderful. To wrap up, Joshua, we've got one last question for you. What are you doing at Falcon Events to prepare your clients for the future, which is, constantly evolving events?
We're doing exactly what I just did for the last 30 minutes, right? Because
Wonderful.
the way that I'm talking about events is the future. In the
Mhm.
present, there's way too much old way thinking from not only meeting planners, but from meeting companies, right? So just helping people kind of rethink how we approach events. The future is not the way we did it in 2019. And it's not going to be everyone walking around with goggles on in the metaverse either. It's going to be somewhere in between, somewhere in the middle.
Mm.
And the sooner we
Yeah.
all embrace the technology, the sooner we all embrace the new way of engaging with brands and events, the sooner we will all find out what events of the future look like.
Wonderful. That was a great conversation, Joshua. Thank you so much for your time and joining us on Event Exchange.
Absolutely. Have me back.